So then we have made it to May, the final month of the Premier League season, and the Premier League relegation battle is still too close to call with the games starting to run out. It's still so close down here that we've got to discuss the Premier League relegation battle all over again. Before we get into this video today, guys, do share your predictions and your opinions on which sides you think are going down. I've got to say, it's so close to call, but get your comments in down below. Do make sure to drop a like as we go for 200 likes on this video, and do make sure to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Please do, for more Premier League content, and we're pushing for 30,000 subscribers by the end of May, so do get involved. So then, looking at that Premier League table, guys, there is still so much to play for in this relegation dogfight. We're drawing a cut-off line here. We've said before that 36 points will be enough to get a team to safety, so we can say that Wolves, AFC, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace and even Chelsea are over the line with the points that they've got. I do think that the bar is actually going to be a little bit lower than that now, because it's snail racing at the bottom and everyone's not getting a move on. I think 35 to survive does actually sound realistic here. So West Ham United still technically involved. Southampton, it looks pretty tricky for them to get out of it. The fascinating thing is the four teams in the middle of that 6-team sandwich. Look how close the points are between these. Leicester City, Leeds United, Nottingham Forest, all on 30 points with 4 games to play. Everton also just on their tails with 29 points. Let's go through all of the teams team by team and have a look at who might survive and who has got to play who in their final fixtures. Starting off with West Ham United. As I say, to get to 35 points, West Ham just need to realistically pick up another point. I know West Ham fans will probably want to get one more win to feel safe, but because everyone keeps tripping each other up in the relegation battle, I do think 35 will get a team to safety. West Ham United do have a busy schedule here with 5 Premier League games to go, whilst everyone else has 4 Premier League games to go. They have also got some European fixtures to fit in there as well, so West Ham United are really busy in May. Manchester City away is the game in hand coming up, and if we're being realistic, I cannot see West Ham United picking up any points at the Etihad when Manchester City are going so well at the moment. Manchester United at home is also difficult, as is Brentford away. I don't think it's impossible for West Ham to get something from one of those 2 games after the Manchester City game. The problem is for West Ham, if they pick up nothing from those first 3 games, then they take on Leeds United and Leicester City, who could have made up some ground on West Ham in that time, and it could be a real relegation shootout in those final 2 games. I think it looks likely for West Ham to survive here. They're not over the line yet. 1 more draw or 2 more draws should be enough, but it could be close if West Ham don't get any more wins. Next up, you've got Leicester City, who are 16th, but only a point ahead of 19th. It's so close between these sides here. Leicester City have 4 games to go. Their form has improved a little bit under Dean Smith. They go away to Fulham, which could be an interesting game. Fulham have been a bit hit and miss, seeing as they've crossed the line now, but still a bit unpredictable. Liverpool at home does look a tricky fixture there for Leicester City. Liverpool have been ending the season a bit stronger, and Newcastle away is a very tricky one. I do not fancy Leicester City to get the 3 points at Newcastle. West Ham at home on the final day will be interesting. Will West Ham be over the line, which makes it possibly more winnable for Leicester City, or will West Ham United be within Leicester City's reach on that final day? Like I say, the goal difference is close, so if Leicester City are only just 3 points behind West Ham, there's the possibility that they could beat them on the final day and leapfrog them, and that could be a real problem for West Ham United. Looking at those fixtures, to get to 5 points, Leicester do need to win 1 and draw 2. It doesn't look particularly easy for Leicester City to do that. Fulham away and West Ham United are the 2 games they've really got to try and win. They've got to target those games, and if they get 4 points from those 2, then a draw against Liverpool or Newcastle gets them to 5 points. 35 to survive. I think it could be doable here for Leicester City, but those fixtures aren't easy. The team just below them, Leeds United, they're bringing in Fireman Sam after Grazia's departure, and Leeds United are really hurtling towards that bottom 3, conceding goals for fun. That 4-1 defeat at Bournemouth really did set off more alarm bells after they conceded 6 at home to Liverpool and 5 at home to Palace. And let's be realistic, Manchester City away does look like a very tricky game for Leeds United again. So if Manchester City do win that game, which we expect them to, at home to Leeds United, Leeds then have 3 games to try and pick up 5 points. Newcastle at home does look difficult. The form that Newcastle have been in, they've been scoring goals for fun, and they'll fancy their chances at Ellen Road. West Ham United away is an interesting one, and then Spurs at home on the final day. I don't think it's impossible for Leeds to win, because Spurs can be very inconsistent as well. Leeds United, can they get 5 points from these 4 games? Well, I don't fancy them to get anything against Man City. They might be lucky to get a draw against Newcastle. West Ham's a difficult one. Spurs at home, I might actually make the most winnable game there for Leeds, but none of them are easy on paper. It might be tricky here for Leeds to get to 35 35 points. They might have to get to about 34 and hope that other teams trip up. Can Sam Allardyce do it again? Next up, another team on 30 points, we find Nottingham Forest. Now, Nottingham Forest have shown a little bit more fight in their last 3 games. They lost narrowly at Liverpool 3-2. They lost narrowly at Brentford 2-1, conceding late on, which was a real killer for Nottingham Forest. And they did get a win against Brighton at home. Despite dropping points against Brentford, Nottingham Forest are still in the fight. They'll be relieved to see that Leeds United got smashed at Bournemouth and that Leicester City and Everton drew with each other. So Forest are still only in the bottom 3, down to goal difference. Can Nottingham Forest get 5 points from these final 4 games? I don't think it's impossible. Southampton at home looks the most winnable fixture there, and it's probably the easiest fixture on paper that any of these bottom 6 teams have left. Can Forest win that game? If they do, they get to 33 points with 3 games to go. They might just need another 2 points to get over the line. If we're being realistic, Forest might have to go for 2 wins because of their inferior goal difference. Chelsea away is not impossible. Arsenal at home does look tricky, but Arsenal have been faltering a little bit lately. Palace away on the final day could be an interesting one. Anything can happen on the final day of a Premier League season, and Crystal Palace have crossed the line now, so could they be on the beach and allow Nottingham Forest to pick up 3 points? I still have a good feeling that Nottingham Forest will get over the line. Their form's a bit inconsistent, but they have been showing a bit more fight recently, and those 4 games, not impossible to see 5 points being picked up maybe. Next up, you've got Everton. Now, Everton obviously having played in the top flight for so long and running it tantalisingly close again with this relegation dogfight. Sean Dyche did initially get a bit of a bounce out of this team, but their form recently has not been great. It was crucial not to lose that Leicester City game, but in the same breath, they'd have preferred to have won it. They are 19th, only a point away from safety. It's going to be close. Their fixtures include Brighton away and Manchester City at home in the first 2. Very tricky there. Everton will need to try and get at least a point from those 2 games, otherwise they'll have to win their final 2. Even if they do get a draw from those first 2, they might still have to win those final 2 depending on the other results. Wolves away, I maybe do fancy Everton to get something from that if Wolves are over the line, as we say. Bournemouth at home on the final day. Once again, Bournemouth have been in good form, but now they're over the line. Could Everton pick up points at Goodison Park? For Everton to get to 35 points from these final 4 games, they need to pick up 6 more points. I can possibly see 2 wins there, but realistically, the most winnable games are the final 2. Everton don't want to leave it until the final 2 games of the season and have to win both to get out of there. They need to keep themselves within touching distance from these first 2 games, so I think it's really important Everton try and get something at Brighton. I don't fancy them against Manchester City, even though it's at Goodison. Wolves and Bournemouth aren't impossible fixtures, but I wouldn't say any of these games on paper are easy for Everton. It's going to be close. I think Everton's season is going right to the wire and to the final day. The final team we've got then are Southampton. Now, Southampton are still rooted to the bottom and their form has not been great. They have been showing good signs in their defeat to Newcastle. They took the lead. In their draw with Arsenal, they were 3-1 up, but unfortunately, wins will only do for Southampton, and for them to get to 35 points from these final 4 games, they'd have to win all 4 of them. I do think that 10 points could be enough here for Southampton. Looking at these fixtures, Nottingham Forest and Fulham has to be 2 wins for Southampton to keep themselves in it going into those final 2 games. Brighton away is a tricky one, as too is Liverpool at home, but once again, as I say, when you get into the final 2 games of the season, weird things can happen. Southampton just need to keep themselves within touching distance of 17th place. Not impossible for Southampton to get out of this, but as I say, they realistically need to get something from every game here, and 3 wins is a minimum from these final 4, and that still might not be enough for Southampton. If you're a Southampton fan, do share your thoughts down below. Are you resigned to the thought of relegation down to the Championship, or do you still think you have a fighting chance? You have to win at Nottingham Forest. You need to take 3 points from the City Ground to give yourselves any chance going into the final 3. So then, I don't think there's an awful lot between everyone's fixtures there. If I had to rank them, I would say Southampton maybe have the slightly easiest fixtures, but they are in the worst position and need to pick up the most points. I think it's doable for Nottingham Forest to get out of this. As I say, 5 points from 4 games is only just above a point per game, and with their fixtures, it's not impossible. West Ham United have the most points out of these bottom 6 and therefore have the least work to do, and do have an extra game, but their next 3 games are against the Manchester clubs and Brentford, so I wouldn't say it's easy here for West Ham. Leicester City and Everton I would put on a par for their fixtures. I don't think there's a lot between it. I will say Leeds United I do think have the most difficult fixtures. Their 2 home games are against top 6 sides and their away games look pretty tricky as well. So then guys, that is all the fixtures for the teams in the bottom 6 here. I've got to say I really don't know how to call this. I think West Ham United are going to lose the game in hand to Manchester City, but I do think those extra 4 points should be enough to just keep them out of trouble. Their final 2 games, as I say, are Leeds United and Leicester City, and West Ham really can't afford for it to go to those 2 games. They need to pick up something before it gets to that. Leicester City seem to be turning a bit of a corner, but their fixtures aren't easy. Leeds United, they've brought in a new manager. It's quite unpredictable to see what's going to happen for them. Nottingham Forest fans, I don't think you're going to be confirmed relegated or confirmed safe going into the final day. I think Nottingham Forest are going to be right on that dotted line, either 17th or 18th going to Crystal Palace, which means it'll be squeaky bum time on that final day for Nottingham Forest. Everton, I think because they're on 29 points and they need 2 wins, I don't fancy their chances much, but they did it last season, and with Sean Dyche they have got a fighting chance, so we shall see. Southampton are 6 points adrift off 17th place, and I don't think anyone's going to take their chances too seriously unless they win the next 2 games and cut the gap on 17th place to less than 3 points, and then maybe people will think Southampton could get out of it, maybe with a bit of form as well. So guys, I don't know what to say. I am doing a final Premier League table prediction tomorrow. It's going to be absolute guesswork because it is so tight in this Premier League relegation battle. As I say, share your thoughts down below. If you support one of these teams, I bet you are biting your nails every time your team plays. What is worth remembering, guys, is this is snail racing. Even if you lose 2 of your final 4, you might still be able to get away with it because the team just below you might lose 3 of their final 4. 34 points could be enough. 35 to survive does sound right this season. Like I say, let me know your thoughts down below. Do make sure to hit that like button and do make sure to subscribe to help us get to 30,000 subscribers. I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.